Close your eyes for a moment and feel. Breathe. Now notice what's inside. Not what you pretend to show the world, but what silently vibrates in your body, deep in your chest. Maybe it's a tightness that won't go away, a fatigue that isn't physical, a sense of living the same days with different names. Maybe you see yourself as someone who tries, who dreams, who desires, but deep down, it feels as if something invisible is always pulling you back to the same place. As if there were a hidden program making you repeat, repeat, repeat. And what if that's true? What if it's not a lack of effort, but an excess of repetition? What if you are reacting to a past so deeply rooted that it has already blended with who you believe yourself to be? Most people think they are deciding, when in fact they are simply obeying emotional memories. Memories that live in the body, that speak without words, that command gestures, thoughts, choices, even when conscious desire says otherwise. It's a silent pain, the pain of being alive but not awake, of seeming to be choosing, but in reality, only reliving, as if there were a replay mode switched on inside the soul, the one that makes us walk in circles while believing we are moving forward. And when we realize this, if we ever do, years or decades have already passed. But there is a way out, and it begins where you'd least expect, in the now, this moment, this very instant. The now is the only place where creation can happen. Not yesterday, which is already gone. Not tomorrow, which is still imagination. It is here, in the silence between one thought and the next, that your true power resides. The now is like a vibrational laboratory, a field of bioenergetic choices, a sacred space where, instead of repeating the past, you can access the future you wish to feel. Bruce Lipton shows us that 95% of our life is run by subconscious programs installed during childhood, programs that shape our automatic responses, our beliefs, our biology. What you believe without noticing becomes emotion, and what you feel becomes vibration, and that vibration creates. Every day, your reality doesn't begin out there. It begins within. It begins with the kind of energy your body emits, often without you being aware. It's like an old song playing on loop. You wake up, breathe, move, but the same emotional soundtrack is still there, playing in the background of your mind. It's the soundtrack of guilt, of fear, of rejection, of scarcity. And as long as that music keeps playing, it doesn't matter how much you change the words or the settings, the movie will be the same. The mind is like a scratched record. It plays the same tracks, the same gestures, the same reactions, and the body, used to this pattern, becomes addicted to those emotions. But here is the hidden miracle. Just as we learn to play that music, we can also learn to change it. We can write new tracks. We can access new frequencies. Joe Dispenza teaches that the present is the only portal to the quantum field, the only point where we can truly alter our energetic signature. It's not mystical, it's scientific. The now is the place where the old and the new meet, and you decide what continues and what ends. The present, therefore, is more than a moment. It is a choice, a frequency, a vibration. It is the instant where you stop reacting and begin creating. And maybe, just maybe, all your soul is asking for right now is this chance to begin again, to return to the now, to listen to yourself, to stop, breathe, feel, and finally, choose. Because while the world outside screams urgencies, your heart whispers truths. And one of those truths is this: you are not trapped, you are only repeating. And repetition is not a sentence, it is only the absence of awareness. The now is waiting for you. And in it, everything can be different. Everything. There is a very specific kind of sadness, hard to name, hard to explain, that takes over when we realize we are living by reflex, not by presence. When we wake up every day with the hope of something new, but end the night with that all-too-familiar feeling that everything was just more of the same, as if life were carrying us and not the other way around. And deep down, it is. Not for lack of will, but because most of us live on the autopilot of pain, a hidden, silent system installed in the unconscious that makes us repeat the same emotional patterns with different faces, different places, different dates. But the frequency is always the same. Unresolved traumas, unprocessed frustrations, memories that still hurt. All of this turns into vibration, and that vibration begins to drive our lives. It starts choosing for us. It starts deciding who we get involved with, what we attract, how we react. The body learns to feel fear even before the situation exists. It learns to expect the worst even when everything seems fine. It learns to defend itself against affection, to run from abundance, to doubt joy. And this happens because biologically, the body becomes an emotional mind. It memorizes the states we live in with the most intensity and repeats them like a cycle. You may desire something new with all your heart, but if your body is addicted to guilt, anger, or scarcity, it will continue to emit exactly those frequencies. And the universe responds, as it always does, to what you vibrate, not to what you say you want. That is why so many try to change their lives by changing the external setting. They move houses, cities, relationships, jobs, but soon enough, there it is again. The same feeling, the same emptiness, the same pain with a new name. Because the mistake is in trying to paint a new landscape without first cleaning the old canvas. And the old canvas is internal. It is vibrational. It is emotional. It is invisible. As long as that canvas isn't purified, it will keep dictating the colors you can use. You may dream of shades of joy, peace, and love, but if within you the base is still fear, anguish, and resistance, nothing will stick. Nothing will last. The new painting begins, but quickly fades away. And the most challenging part is that all of this happens without us realizing it. You feel like you are acting, but you are only reacting. Life becomes a reflection of the emotional records of the past. There is no real creation, only biological repetition, and time keeps passing, while the body continues to decide for you. But now, something inside you has begun to see. And when we begin to see, everything begins to change. Even if slowly, because seeing is the first step to choosing, and choosing is the beginning of the end of autopilot. There is an almost invisible discomfort that arises every time we decide to change. It's as if something inside us protests, a force that, silent and persistent, pulls us back to the old, even when the new feels more true. And this is confusing, because you want, you desire, you try, but you can't sustain it. The question that screams in silence is, why? The answer lies in the brain itself. It wasn't designed for the new. It was designed for survival. And survival for the brain means familiarity. The known is safe, even when it hurts, even when it imprisons, even when it wounds. The biological brain understands that if you've survived up to now with these emotions, these habits, these beliefs, then it's better to keep going like this. The new is uncertain. The old, at least, is predictable. That's why every deep change begins with a conflict. On one side, your conscious desire. On the other, your subconscious programming. You say, I want peace, but your biology is conditioned to constant alertness. You say, I want love, but your body has learned to expect rejection. You say, I want abundance, but your vibration still carries the fear of lack. It's in this gap between intention and vibration that frustration is born, because desiring something while feeling the opposite is like trying to turn on the light while clinging tightly to the darkness. The rational mind can write affirmations, visualize goals, repeat mantras, but if the body doesn't follow, if the body is still vibrating the old, nothing truly changes. Joe Dispenza explains it clearly. Change only happens when we create new neural connections. And for that, it takes more than positive thinking. It takes repetition, elevated emotion, coherence. It takes teaching the body to feel what it has never felt before. Not just to understand, but to experience. Not just to want, but to become. But here's the subtler point. The brain, will resist. Because change requires energy, and the brain wants to conserve energy. Change requires letting go of the known, and the brain wants to protect itself from the unknown. So it will create distractions. It will make you doubt. It will remind you of the times it didn't work out. It will try to keep you exactly where you are, because there it knows what to expect. This resistance is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that you're touching an old, deeply rooted structure. You're accessing the foundations of your programming, and that is sacred. Because we can only transform what we dare to face up close. The mind will resist, yes, but the soul always knows. It knows there is something beyond. It knows there is a vibration where you feel whole, light, safe, even if your body hasn't experienced it yet. And it is for that vibration that it calls, every day, even in silence, even through pain. Sometimes life seems to demand great revolutions, to change everything at once, to take huge steps, to create visible ruptures. But the truth is that in the language of the quantum field, the greatest transformations don't begin with shouts. They begin with a silent decision, a vibrational choice made in the subtle space between one thought and the next. The present is that space, a place where everything is still possible, where the old has not yet been reactivated and the new can still be chosen. It is a sacred interval, and it's there that everything changes, not with promises, not with perfect plans, but with the simple decision not to continue in the same way. This choice doesn't need to be loud. It can be a change in gesture, in tone of voice, in gaze. It can be the moment when you breathe before responding, the instant when you notice the old impulse rising and decide not to follow it. The decision is silent, but the impact is profound. Because when you interrupt an automatic reaction, you create a new path, a path that didn't exist before. Joe Dispenza speaks of this as neuronal reprogramming, and it's not just about thinking differently, it's about acting differently, even if it's only for 5 seconds, even if it's just once a day, because the brain learns through repetition, but it is also transformed by small emotional experiences that interrupt the old pattern. Imagine standing before a vibrational crossroads. On one side, the familiar path, reactions, fears, old habits. On the other, the new path, presence, choice, awareness. Each small conscious action is like a seed planted in this new soil. And over time, that new trail strengthens. It gains body. It takes root. It's not about changing everything at once. It's about changing one moment and staying in it. It's about recognizing that, although change may seem distant, it already begins the moment you decide not to repeat. When you choose, even with fear, a new tone, a new silence, a new vibration, this decision is the spark. And every spark, when nourished with presence, becomes a creative fire. Because deep down, you don't need an entirely new life. What you need is a now that is truly yours. A now where you are present enough to choose, and not just repeat. That is the turning point. The instant where the old begins to lose strength, and the new begins to be born. There is a language that is not spoken with words. It is felt in the body, transmitted in silence, understood by the universe without any effort. This language is emotion, but not just any emotion. It is the one that is born from inner truth, that vibrates with authenticity, and that carries the frequency of what is real. When you feel deeply, you create. And when that emotion is in coherence with what you desire, the quantum field responds. Everything you think, feel, and believe sends signals. But it is not thoughts alone that shape reality. It is thoughts aligned with elevated feelings. It is this coherence between mind and heart that opens invisible portals and reorganizes inner patterns. It is what turns desire into manifestation, expectation into reality. Bruce Lipton shows us that the body's internal environment is the main factor that activates or deactivates our genes. This is epigenetics. We are not at the mercy of genetics. We are at the mercy of what we feel repeatedly. With every sustained emotion, biology responds. The brain reorganizes connections, the body shifts its chemistry, the frequency rises or remains trapped in the past. That is why visualizing what you want is not an act of fantasy. It is an act of reprogramming. When you allow yourself to feel now what you would normally expect to feel only after something happens, you begin to train your body to inhabit a new reality before it becomes visible. It is not pretending. It is vibrational training. Imagine your body as a musical instrument. If it has spent years tuned to play sadness, fear, insecurity, that is what it will naturally play. But with time and intention, you can tune it to new melodies, gratitude, trust, joy, wholeness. And when these melodies become familiar, the field responds. Because the universe does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you already vibrate as if it were real. This is the bridge. Elevated emotion. Feeling complete before you have. Feeling gratitude before the arrival. Feeling love before reciprocity. When you sustain this vibration, even if only for moments, you alter the structure of your field. And the field always reflects what you sustain. It is not something that happens overnight. It is a process, a dance between you and the invisible. But each time you feel with truth, each time your body aligns with what your soul already knows, something shifts, something heals, something draws closer. And maybe you don't see it yet, but it has already begun. Because the quantum field does not respond to urgency. It responds to coherence. And your coherence is your vibrational signature. There is a silent expectation many people carry, that true change will be accompanied by a great impact, an emotional explosion, a mystical experience, a defining moment that marks a before and an after. But reality is quite different. True transformation rarely makes noise. It happens in invisible consistency, in the details, in the day you repeat a more conscious choice, in the moment you feel something new and decide to stay with it for a few more seconds. It isn't intensity that sustains change, it's repetition, continuity, daily presence, the quiet decision to keep going even when it seems like nothing is happening. Because the soul is not shaped by great events. It is rebuilt through small gestures repeated with intention. The quantum field, like the brain, responds to frequency, not force. It responds to what is sustained with coherence, not what is done in haste. Many wait to feel ready before they begin. But readiness is not an emotion that comes first. It is born from practice. It arises along the way, once you've already started even without certainty. Waiting to feel completely secure before acting is like waiting for the body to be strong before starting to move. Strength comes from repetition, from the vibrational musculature built by inhabiting the now. Bruce Lipton shows that the internal environment alters biology gradually, and this environment transforms when there is emotional persistence. When you repeat the state of presence until it becomes familiar, until the now stops being an escape from the past and becomes your true home. The practice of micro-choices shows that what matters is not the size of the decision, but its vibrational quality. A new thought, a different gesture, a deeper breath, a silence where there once was reactivity. All of this is spiritual practice. All of this is cellular change. Patience on this path is not passive waiting. It is vibrational wisdom. It is knowing that the field responds to coherence, not desperation. It is trusting the invisible and staying there even when the eyes can't yet see. Because the present is not a point in time. It is a frequency, a vibration that can only be accessed with presence. And the more you stay in it, the more the past dissolves, the more the new draws near, the more you transform from the inside out, without noise, without spectacle, only with consistency and truth. At some point along the journey, we begin to understand that it's not just about changing life, it's about returning to ourselves, going back to the point where everything begins. And that point is the now. Not the now as a second on the clock, but the now as a state of being, an inner space where you stop being the result and become the cause, where you stop waiting for something to change and begin to vibrate differently. The now is the only time where the power of choice exists. Everything else is memory or projection. The past lives in the body's reactions, the future in the mind's expectations, but the now lives in the heart. It lives in conscious breathing. It lives in the instant where you can pause, observe, feel, and choose. And it is only from there that you reclaim the command of your reality. Bruce Lipton reminds us that our cells don't react only to genetics. They react to the internal environment you sustain daily. The thought you repeat, the emotion you prolong, the energy you choose to nurture, and all of this happens now, here, in this very moment, because it is at this point that vibrational mutation begins. It is here that old codes can be deactivated. It is here that a new energetic signature begins to form. Neville Goddard, with his poetic depth, said that the secret of creation lies in assuming the state of already being, not waiting for something to happen to feel ready, safe, loved, but to feel it now, as if it already were, and to sustain that feeling with truth, with gratitude, with presence, not as illusion, but as seed. Because the now is just that, a seed, but it's not enough to desire it. It must be watered, with intention, with elevated emotion, with consistency. This inner field must be cultivated with the same dedication with which one cares for something sacred, because it is sacred. It is the soil of your soul. And perhaps looking back, you realize that for a long time you tried to change on the outside what needed to be remade on the inside. But now you see. And seeing transforms, seeing awakens, seeing frees. The life you seek is not in tomorrow, it is in the now, waiting for your full presence. And when you surrender to this moment with truth, the past loses command, and destiny begins to be rewritten, silently, lovingly, from the inside out.